As someone who plays the game Contractors often, I feel like they always find new ways to innovate and provide more content than its competitors. Despite being out for only 3 years, the game has provided players with nearly 50 different guns to choose from, 13 maps, around a dozen game modes, co-op, and currently 3 different loadout choices. Developers have done all this for a game that can be bought right out of pocket. Even after all of this, Contractors seems to still be placing last against the other two VR first-person shooters, Onward and Pavlov. Now, I'm not trying to insult these games in any way. I enjoy Pavlov thoroughly, and I heard nothing but good from Onward. Also, they both provide some very different concepts and have some substantial differences that make themselves appeal more to certain people. Onward is a realistic shooting simulator, and Pavlov is an arcade kind of game, like Call of Duty. Which of these 3 games is the best is a commonly disputed topic, but I'm not here to talk about that. I'm here to talk about something that is so unique it could boost the player counts up to new heights. I'm here to discuss something that almost no VR game has ever done, going back to the roots of the First World War. So let's get into how Contractors could add in World War I. Now, the most important part of adding new content to a game is seeing why it's important. Developers can't just add World War I to Contractors just because I think it would be cool. No, they need additional reasons. They need to see how it's unique, and more importantly, how it could bring in new players and boost sales. And from what I've seen, I think World War I brings both of these benefits to the table. So I'll start with how this is unique, and I'm pretty sure most of you will know the main reason why. World War I games are rare. I mean, think about it. You've probably never played a World War I game outside of Battlefield 1, and frankly, I haven't played a lot of others myself, and it didn't take me a lot of digging to find out that with so many World War II games in VR, there is only one that goes back to the Great War. This game is called Warplanes, and even though it plays very well and can be pretty fun, it's not a first-person shooter, it's a flight simulator. So with all that in mind, Contractors would become the one and only VR World War I FPS if they were to add in the new content. So why does this uniqueness matter? How is it going to make more people buy the game and keep playing it? Well, to understand that, we have to look at other games that have done similar things, and the most prominent example of this is Battlefield 1. Now, BF1 was released back in 2016 to amazing reviews, becoming a commercial success, and selling over 15 million copies, nearly 6 years later, and the game is still frequently played by many. Now, there are a lot of different reasons why Battlefield 1 was so successful, and this is all discussed really well in the Ackman's video on it, which I would check out later. But the main reason I think it has stayed active for all these years is the lack of alternatives. I discussed this earlier, but Battlefield 1 is in the very small minority of World War I games, and that has made people stick with it for all of this time. Another reason that fans bring up often is just how immersive BF1 is. It shows a rich portrayal of the war-torn ruins on the battlefield and makes players feel like they have been put straight into the conflict. So, if these same players could get even more immersion by playing on a VR headset and being able to experience the war from the eyes of a soldier, they would flock to VR pretty damn quick. So, for all of these reasons, if Contractors were to make a World War I game, they could expect a huge boost in player counts. The First World War saw the use of many different weapons that would change the face of warfare forever. Rifles, SMGs, shotguns, snipers, pistols, explosives, and even medieval weapons would give the different sides advantages over their enemies. Now, some of these weapons were only limited to prototypes, but others would be so successful that they would see use in the Second World War or later on. So to find out what weapons would be the best for a DLC, I had to do tons of research before compiling all the weapons into lists and making some concept art. Now, obviously, I don't know everything about the conflict. It happened over 100 years ago, so I am most likely going to get some of this information wrong. However, I will try my best to address these guns in the right way, so just bear with me. Anyways, let's get into it. First on the list is rifles, and I don't mean the single-shot bolt-action ones. I'm talking about the automatic assault rifles and light machine guns. The first of these is the Lewis gun, a light machine gun that was used by the British throughout the war. Invented in 1911, it was one of the first LMGs to see service. The gun had a rate of fire of 500 rounds per minute and would use pan magazines containing 47 to 97 rounds of ammunition. Next up, we have the first ever assault rifle, the Fedorov Avtomov, which was put into service in 1916. It was used by Russian troops during the second half of the war and was a revolutionary gun at the time. The weapon used 25-round magazines and could fire at up to 400 rounds a minute. Next gun on the list is the M1918 BAR, which was used in the last year of the war by US forces. This weapon also saw use in the Second World War, so Caveman Studios could kill two birds with one stone and add this gun to both World War I and World War II loadouts. With a rate of fire of 600 rounds per minute, it utilized a 20-round magazine. Next, we have a semi-automatic rifle that was used by French forces, the Fusil Automatique Model 1917. The gun used a 5-round magazine and had a low rate of fire of around 160 rounds per minute. Now we have a similar gun that was developed far earlier, the Mondragon M1887. Used by the Germans, this gun would be used with 5-round stripper clips, which would be loaded into a 10-round magazine, and then fired at a rate of around 257 rounds per minute. Those are all of the 5 guns I listed for rifles, so here is the concept art I made of what this might look like in a contractor's loadout. Now for the weapon type that was probably used the least in World War I, submachine guns. Now, I'm gonna start with the guns that seem to have actually seen combat, but there were lots of prototype SMGs in development at the time. First off, we have the MP-18, which was used by German stormtroopers in the last year of the war. The MP-18 had a firing rate of up to 500 rounds per minute and used a 32-round drum magazine. This gun is typically said to be the first true submachine gun. Furthermore, on the list is the Beretta M1918, which was used by the Italians in the last year of the war. The Beretta would fire at a fast 900 rounds per minute using a 25-round magazine. Another Italian gun on the list is the Villa Perosa submachine gun. Originally serving in aircraft, it was later passed down to ground troops. It had a fast rate of fire of 1,200 rounds per minute, but had a small magazine that could only hold 25 rounds. If this gun was added to contractors, I think it would have a high cost along some other nerfs due to its effectiveness. Now, we have probably the weirdest gun on the list, the Frommerstopp, due to it being more of an automatic pistol than an SMG. It is said to have originated from Austria-Hungary and was originally a semi-automatic weapon before a new model was made that would fire fully automatically. The rate of fire was a high 900 rounds per minute, and it would use many magazines, including a high-capacity 25-round mag. Next on the list is a prototype SMG developed by Austria-Hungary, the Hellriegel. Now, this gun barely exists, as it is only seen in 3 photos, and there isn't a known model still out there, unless some European guy just has it like chilling in his attic, but we don't know. The estimated firing rate is between 650 and 850 rounds per minute. In the photos, we can see that the gun would either use a 20-round stick magazine or a whopping 160-round drum magazine. Now, out of all the prototypes, the reason I picked this one was because it could have been in use as early as 1915. However, for some unknown reason, it didn't pass the test and go into major production. Since it is a prototype weapon, it would need to have some major nerfs to it, along with a high price tag in-game. Now we have some of the more controversial guns in the war, shotguns. When these guns first entered the conflict, the Axis powers saw them as a treaty violation and threatened to kill anybody caught with a shotgun or even just shotgun shells. Despite this, shotguns are still used today and aren't seen as a war crime. First off on the list is a Winchester 1897, which was a pump-action shotgun used by US forces towards the end of the war. Now, I don't really need to say a lot about this weapon because as of recently, it is already in the game, in the World War II loadout. Next up is the Brown & Auto 5, another shotgun used by the Americans. The Brown & Auto 5 was a semi-automatic shotgun that fired at 257 rounds per minute with 5 rounds or 5 shotgun shells. Lastly is the Remington Model 11, a shotgun that I strangely wasn't able to find a lot of information about. What I do know is that it was put into production in 1905 and was an automatic shotgun. Contractors might be better off adding a different shotgun or this, but at the time I was getting my info, this was the only automatic shotgun I could find. Most soldiers during World War I would be equipped with a bolt-action sniper, which had been the case for many wars beforehand. Some of these snipers are still in use today. First up, we have a sniper that is already in Contractors in the World War II loadout. This is the MK3, a sniper that was used by the British. Now, the one I listed here is the short magazine model. However, the one used in the game has the normal magazine, which I would say works better. Plus, it's just another gun that they could just copy and paste right into a World War I loadout. Next up is the American Springfield 1903. It was issued to most US troops during the conflict and was also used in smaller numbers during the Second World War. Finally, we have the Gewehr 98, which was used by the Germans throughout the war. It would be loaded via 5-round stroker clips into a magazine. The gun was put out of service in 1935. Now for the pistols of the Great War. We'll start off with a pretty well-known weapon that is still used today and is yet another gun that is already in the base game. This, of course, is a 1911 pistol, which is oddly in the modern loadout, but not World War II. The 1911 was a very popular sidearm among World War I and World War II soldiers alike. Moving on, we have the Luger P08, a German pistol similar to the P38, which is in the World War II loadout. This pistol would use 8-round magazines and would also see use in later conflicts. Now, adding in some variety, we have the Nugent M1895 revolver. This sidearm used 7-round cylinder magazines and had a rate of fire of 21 rounds per minute. Now we have melee weapons, which have been used all throughout history. This is no exception for the First World War, however many of these weapons didn't have any main brands making them and would typically be nameless weapons. So first off, we had the simple combat knife. Now, there weren't any specific forces using them, or any big companies producing them. I actually just put in the same model that is used in Contractors. Furthermore, we have yet another weapon that I just copy and pasted from the base game, the machete. Again, I don't have much to really say about this weapon. Moving on, I finally have a weapon with some backstory, the Trench Club. This weapon was strangely medieval compared to the more advanced weapons used in the Great War. It was often made by soldiers in the trenches using random materials they found laying around. The item that was typically just a stick with nails going through it would be used in nighttime raids as a silent weapon. Soldiers could quickly take out enemies just with one quick, swift blow to the head. Now for the gadgets, which were seen in many different forms during the First World War. Since some of the gadgets are so out of the ordinary from pre-existing ones in the base game, I decided to take a safe bet and just put in some standard grenades. First of the two is a smoke grenade, which I copied down from the World War II loadout. Smoke grenades are good for blinding enemies in order to take a stealth approach. Next up is the MK1 grenade. In service from 1917 to 1918, it was used by the United States. Now, originally I was going to add gas grenades as a third gadget. While this could be done by the developers, I didn't list it due to the possibility of it being overpowered in the smaller maps. Now, assuming that the developers add all of the previous things to the game, it would only make sense for them to make a map to go along with it. Obviously, this is optional, but I think it's fair to go over a few ideas. Now, I would think that Caveman Studios would want to kill two birds with one stone here and make a map that fits both for World War I and World War II. And this would work since during the 20-year period between the conflicts, architecture didn't change all that much. So I would say for this, they could make a small city-like map for both settings. I would take notes from the Battlefield 1 map, Amiens, since it looks similar to World War II settings. I think that making something similar to that would be a great idea that players would enjoy. Now, if the developers really want to go the extra mile in immersion, then they could make a trench warfare kind of map. Now, this is something that I would love to see, but I'm not completely sure about how other players would feel about it. If they did add it, though, it would be very immersive to go through no man's land and breach the enemy trenches. Those are just my thoughts, though. So today, we have gone over all of the fundamentals needed for contractors to make a good World War I edition. If you did enjoy the video, make sure to like and subscribe because this video took about a month to make, and if this is something you would like to see, there are many things you could do to help make this a reality. Leave a comment and let me know what you think about the idea. Go into the Discord server and encourage the developers by telling them that this is something you would like to see. Of course, we can't make them add World War I overnight. Adding lots of new content is a huge step for them. However, if we are able to show support, show them that this is something that we want them to add, then it might just happen. They can't just add it because some people want it, they need to know it's a majority. So if we can show demand, they will supply. Thank you for watching, goodbye.